Hello and welcome to Predictocast, the podcast where we predict a movie storyline after watching only the first 10 minutes and knowing nothing else about it. I'm Josh, and with me as always is Skinner. Hey, Skinner.
Hey, Josh. Hey, everybody.
And we are not alone. That's right. All this week, we are joined by our good buddy, Dan McCoy from the Flophouse. Hey, Dan.
Oh, I've been promoted.
Good buddy.
Hey guys, 10-4. Good buddy.
Over and out.
I'm not used to people using the 70s version of buddy. I'm from the Maritime, so just buddy is kind of like the exhale when you say something to somebody.
Speaking of 10-4, good buddy, I watched Convoy recently. Have you guys seen Convoy?
I haven't seen Convoy in a while.
I have once before. Yeah, it's been a long time though.
Oh man, that is a strange movie because it's based on this novelty song,
yeah,
which is in itself based on like the CB radio trucker fad, but it's directed by Sam Peckinpah.
Yeah,
and like it struggles between being a Sam Peckinpah movie and like a Hal Needham, like Burt Reynolds style movie. I mean, Chris Christopherson's the lead, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
To me, it's so weird that like I think of that song, the novelty song that the movie is based on, more from Homer singing it in an early episode of The Simpsons where Bart is down the well, which in itself is very old now.
Yeah. Well, I don't get me wrong. I'm not old enough, even though I'm old at this point, to remember the actual song being a hit. I think first encountered it through The Simpsons, but what a weird 70s curio that we're not talking about.
Well, we are talking about, that's a good setup though, because we are kind of talking about a weird 70s curio that I guess probably less people know about. We're back to talk about the rest of Lady Ice from 1973, and thankfully, this is, I would say, a pretty entertaining movie. I said it at the end of the first part. I was like, there's hope that this will be good or at least entertaining. And I was really entertained. I really liked this movie.
I can't go that far, but I don't think it was. I mean, like, if you have like an appreciation for like 70s crime movies and Donald Sutherland, there's definitely like, it's fun.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what it was. I had fun watching it, so it's like I enjoyed I didn't feel like it was some of these movies that we've seen are just a slog to get through, and this one was just moving always. And I was like, all right, I don't know what's going on. I don't know why anyone's doing anything, but I'm enjoying it. Donald Sutherland's driving cars through fruit stands and stuff, and it's just there's just always kind of silly stuff happening. So it just kept me enraptured the entire time.
That's true. Like, I think there always is like stuff sort of like unfolding, and if I was going to say something against the movie, it'd be more like as soon as it becomes clear what's going on, I got less interested.
Yeah, that's fair.
Not because like what's going on wasn't interesting, but it was like, oh, you took a kind of a straightforward story and you told it in a way where it like unfolded in front. And then once we just get it, like once the last unfolding unfolds, it's like, okay, well now that's just a straightforward story. But it was fun.
I like where it lost it for me as far as like caring about the plot, which I generally wasn't. I was just enjoying it as almost a tone piece more than anything else. Was when like near the end, like the plots are starting to unfold, but no one seems to care. Like they're literally like laughing it off. Like we're here on our own charisma.
Okay. Well, I mean, I guess we'll get to the ending.
Well, we can talk about it now because it's an insane ending.
Well, I do have questions about what is going on there because I think maybe the laughing is kind of like this sort of what an ironic world laughter where like is the implication that neither of them is going to get any money at that point, like, and they're like, oh, this was a big waste of time, let's laugh about it. Like that was the part that I wasn't quite clear on, or whether it was just like this release that had nothing to do with it. I mean, either way, it's some of the fakest movie laughter.
Oh my god, it's amazing.
World,
I don't know what they're trying to signify there, because like at this point they're both in the clear. Like she's signed some document that gives her immunity, and she's turned over the bad guys, and the bad guys are going to be apprehended at some point when their boat runs out of gas, I guess. And they just stand there laughing. And I don't know if it's like you said, it's just this release of, well, we made it through, or it's a release of, well, now, we're not getting anything out of it, or if they've just gone crazy. Like, I don't know what that is supposed to signify, but I just loved how it ended, this fake ass movie laughter, and then the credits are rolling. It's like, all right, that's
it diffuses what the ending is, which is a boat fight, which in general, if you told me like the movie ends with a boat fight, oh, that sounds exciting. It's not really, but like then they just sit there and they're like, it almost seems like they're like, yeah, we got here. It's all over. Time to laugh.
Well, wait. Here's the problem with me as a planner. So at this point, I watched this movie too far away to remember the details. Like, who takes the diamonds or whatever it is at the end? Like, what?
I think that's
who's in the boat.
That's I think that's Eddie, who is like her dad's sort of second, his right hand man, who's kind of helping him with the muscle and stuff. So I think that's who that is, and then he has some guys with him.
The guy who squeezed the balls.
Oh yes.
Yeah. Because what I was going to say about that is it is kind of weird to have like the two protagonists of the movie just sort of like standing on a beach watching this character that I don't think has been set up enough for us to like care about, and is not memorable enough to be like, oh, isn't it ironic that this minor character like escapes or what? Like it seems like the movie is taken away all of a sudden from the heroes.
I feel like he hasn't been in the movie for a while. Like he sends his goons after Hammond and squeeze his balls, but after that point, another dude is the main dude with Paula for the rest of the movie. I'm like, oh, I guess he's out of the movie, and then he shows up to take the diamonds, and I'm like, by that point, I could almost care less. I've seen enough car races and skinny. Does every movie in the 70s have a skinny dipping scene?
I think that was required by law.
Yeah. I mean,
it's a generalization.
What a movie.
If you want a good recommendation to everyone out there, if you really want to enjoy this movie, just having sets, places, movement, and any plot, watch it back to back with The Telephone from Whoopi Goldberg in the 80s, where nothing happens.
I will say that the only reason that I'm even cognizant of Eddie in the movie is because I looked him up. I was like, who is this guy? I was looking through the cast, and he's played by John Cypher, which is a great name, but that guy played Man-at-Arms in the Masters of the Universe movie from the 80s. And so I was like, I knew I recognized him from somewhere, and I looked him up and I was like, oh, that's where he's from. But yeah, he's really not in the second half of the movie, so you sort of forget about him as a character. And then at the end, when all of these other characters are chasing him and our two leads are just standing on the beach with doing nothing, it is sort of deflating a little bit at the end. Like they're not getting away with a big score or anything. They're just sort of laughing as the camera pulls away from the beach, and you're just like, all right.
Take it off with that hot ice.
Also, like, I mean, as long as we're bringing up like who the people are, I'm sure that this was going to get mentioned at some point, but I wanted to say that I looked up, there's two credited writers, and the more notable one, his first screenplay credit is the Thomas Crown Affair, which is interesting since he turns out to be an insurance investigator in this, and it's this is in many ways a gender swapped version of the Thomas Crown Affair, because like that's a movie about a female insurance investigator who falls in love with this debonair like rich thief guy, and here it's a male insurance investigator falling for this this diamond fence like woman, this organized crime figure, and it's like, okay, well, I guess he thought it worked for him once, so let's go back to. I mean,
yeah.
After this, his career doesn't really go much of anywhere, but before that, he has a credit in addition to Thomas Crown Affair on Bullet,
and
another Steve McQueen movie, and They Call Me Mr. Tibbs. So he was. Like he had a career that was like a real run of big movies, and then And then Lady Ice came along.
Derailed it. One thing that we should get out of the way, our prediction about the big guy being still stuck to that toilet is unfounded, because they just kill him in the ocean midway through, which was really kind of a bummer.
He kind of got flushed in the world's toilet, if you think about it.
They credit him in the credits as Fat Man. Like, they couldn't even come up with a name for him.
Maybe like that was his street name, like, Jake and the Fat Man.
Yeah, that's what that sitcom was based on, this character.
Now, I do think we got a couple of things right, although small details rather than like I think I said that this large man was maybe a mob courier that's being robbed.
Right.
And that's kind of what happens in the movie. I mean, it's he's being robbed by an insurance guy.
You also called the handcuff thing, because you said when he pulled the handcuffs out, you were wondering if those might have been real. So maybe like, was he secretly like a cop or a law enforcement guy or something? And it turns out, he is he's an insurance investigator, so he has some sort of authority. So they weren't just he's not just some random dude, which explains why he's working at the car lot.
It kind of explains.
Yeah, sort of.
Yeah. Well, that was the other thing that like sort of was called, I forget who said it. It wasn't me, but that she was his quote next mark, which is not exactly true, but like, yes, he is stationed there specifically to kind of get close to her, which he does by, stealing her car after she insults, like, from the start, like, immediately their interaction is like, we're gonna do things to one another, like negative things, and that's gonna turn each other on.
It's
pretty much set up from the beginning.
They're like, you would think that he would have done a little more undercover when she shows up at the car place, but like he instead like blows his entire cover immediately. Like, as soon as she's part of it, he's messing with her. He gets called young man by her boss. I feel bad because like I can't think of him as a young man. He's several years younger than I am at this point. But there's just something about him. He's both swaggerly and full of youthful sexual energy, but yet he's still Donald Sutherland, and he's walking around with this mustache and these jorts. And I don't know. I can't. He doesn't seem a young man. Like I don't see how anyone could call him young man.
He's just got a stately air about him. But like her dad owns the car lot that he's working at, and her dad is also sort of involved in this diamond smuggling, selling operation that they've got going on. But he seems a little, like, later in the movie when they have that scene together, he seems a little apprehensive about it. Like he wants to get out of the business, and she does the whole like one last job and then we're done kind of thing.
I love a little context. I love a little rabbit hole when it comes to these sorts of things. And I just happened to click on the cinematographer for this movie, and he has a long filmography going back to the 30s. But some of his more notable movies are The Killing.
Oh, that's a great movie.
Ride the High Country, The Wild Bunch, True Grit, The Getaway, and of course, above all that, The Parent Trap.
Oh, nice.
And you called out The Parent Trap in the first episode when we were talking about Donald Sutherland maybe being a twin, which...
I absolutely forgot that. There is but one Donald Sutherland in this movie.
Sadly, yeah. And they are immediately, he and her are immediately sort of at each other's throats, but in that sort of playful, sexually charged way where they are attracted to each other, but they're, he's doing a job, so you don't know if it's all an act or if he is really interested in her. He clearly is, and whether she's interested in him in any real way or whatever. And he kind of makes some cracks at her, and she goes up to her dad, who owns this car lot, and he he calls him up to the office and basically fires him. And because he's like, I don't like offensive language in front of customers, and this customer has to be my daughter. And of course, Donald Sutherland makes some cracks about like, well, I was expecting courtship and marriage and becoming your son-in-law, and like he's just so sarcastic and smarmy in this thing. Yeah. Like, I mean, even later where he drives through that guy's fruit stand and then the guy's like screaming at him and he just throws him a couple bucks and he's like, we're partners now, and then he just drives away.
He takes off with he gets fired, goes back to the floor, starts messing with her car, and then takes off with her car. This blue car should have got like third or fourth billing in the movie. It's all over the place. But
I was not expecting a car chase so quickly.
There's so many car chases though. I mean, how many movies have a really good scene where someone is looking at diamonds under a microscope in the back of a camper while being in a car chase?
Yeah, here's the... Okay, I don't quite understand
what was going on there.
The crime plot in this
none
movie.
of that made any sense to me at all.
Because so he's like, he thinks that she's involved in this diamond fencing or jewel fencing business, right? And so he intercepts this particular piece, the necklace we see at the beginning. And then I guess he's like, even though he's recovered that, which is the company, I think he's employed by the company that had that piece. Even though he recovers that thing, he's also waiting around for them to make a move on more diamonds from that company.
Yeah. I thought that that piece would be the center of the whole thing. Everyone fighting for that piece, and like he shows it off to her very quickly, and then like it's all about these other diamonds that Daft Punk steals from the place in Chicago. And I love, because I'm a huge fan of inflation. It's just how much, like when they're throwing around numbers and the costs of things, like they're incredulous and they're like, this man Ford Pierce says he's worth $2 million. His house costs $175,000.
My God, that house! Like they showed that house on screen, I was like, "What the fuck?" He paid $175,000 for that. That would be like $10 million now.
They're so incredulous about it, and I love it. I just imagine like, oh man, you could buy so many 5-cent Big Macs with that $175,000.
So it was mentioned on IMDb trivia that George Lucas was offered this movie.
Yeah,
according
I saw
to
that.
One of his biographies, and I tracked down what they must have been talking about. It's in George Lucas: A Life, I believe, is the book, and it says here it was talking about developing American Graffiti. Despite all the rejections during that period, Lucas stubbornly refused to abandon the project. We were in dire financial straits, but I spent a year of my life trying to get that film off the ground. I was offered about 3 other pictures during that time. They all turned out to be duds. One of them was released at the same time as Graffiti. It's called Lady Ice. I turned that down at the bleakest point when I was in debt to my parents, in debt to Francis Coppola, in debt to my agent. I was so far in debt, I thought I'd never get out. Everybody in Hollywood had turned down American Graffiti. Universal had already turned it down once, and they offered me $75,000 to do Lady Ice, which is more money than I'd made in my entire life. And I said no. I said, by God, I've got a movie here and I'm going to get it made somehow. And I did. So I think he made the right choice to do American Graffiti, one of the largest return on investment movies ever made.
Yeah, I mean, comparing this to that, obviously he made the right choice. But like, I still, when I saw that, I was like, what would this have looked like if he had directed it? Like, I would have been interested to see his take on it, because we were wondering like how that even happened. Like, was it because he had worked with Robert Duvall on like THX 1138 like a couple years prior? Was it, did he get did that name get thrown out? You know, like, oh, I worked with this guy, he could do it. Or was it just a random kind of thing where they happen to be connected, you know, tangentially or whatever? But yeah, I do wonder what it would have looked like, because of course this is before Star Wars, so it's like, what and then if it's around the same time as American Graffiti, like, would it have had some of that same like stylistic stuff in it? Like, I don't know. I'm curious to see what that would have looked like. That would have been interesting.
I just imagine like this world where the Lucas oeuvre includes Lady Ice. Like, it's a well-known thing. Like, oh, American Graffiti, Star Wars, Howard the Duck, Lady Ice.
I mean, it is true too that, like, I mean, Lucas at that point was he felt like a 70s filmmaker, but he was like the new wave of 70s filmmakers. And Lady Ice is directed in this style that is very much like end of the 60s, like mostly traditional still style of crime movie, like a little extra flair, but basically like also kind of a little stolid.
Yeah, I mean it's very on rails and kind of just it's kind of coasting on the attractiveness and charisma of its stars, but like it pretends to have a twist, but kind of doesn't.
Yeah, so I would be interested to see what someone who is a bit more of a stylist would have done with this, because I think I looked up the director and he was not anything that I.
Yeah.
By the way, I keep going down these tangents. I wanted to confirm what I said about American Graffiti. The budget for American Graffiti was $777,000, and the box office is $140 million.
Holy good Lord!
Yeah,
wow,
it's quite a return. The guy who directed this, Tom Grease, I think is his name. He's done a bunch of TV and he did some like Western stuff. He did direct 4 episodes of the Adam West Batman series, though, so I find that pretty fun.
Okay.
But yeah, like, so they have a bit of a car chase. He's kind of flirting with her a little bit. Like he drives her car off. She chases him. He leaves the car for her to find. And we finally, I think this is around the time in the movie, we can jump all over the place, it doesn't matter, where we get introduced to Robert Duvall's character, who is not in the movie as much as I was thinking or expecting him to be, despite being third billed. He's kind of like he's barely in it, but he plays is he FBI or ATF? I can't remember, but his name is Ford Pierce. Great name. And he is working sort of with Donald Sutherland's character, or at least he knows about him. And he seems sort of like pissed off that they have to like give him a little bit of leeway because he wants to go in and arrest all these guys, and this insurance company won't let him. Like, I never understood the whole I'm an insurance investigator and somehow I'm able to operate around the restrictions of the FBI and like do all this. I never understood how that worked.
Yeah, I don't know either. I think it must have something to do with the fact that like they're the ones pressing charges for these. I have no idea, but it is strange too, because like if I recall, Robert Duvall is mostly justifiably angry that like they fished the dead courier out of the lake or ocean or wherever, and it's definitely because Donald Sutherland came in and stole these diamonds from him that this guy got killed. And if he's not letting them just go in and arrest these people, like, what does Donald Sutherland do? Like, he is a loose cannon, as they might say.
They bring him in, they threaten him, and he always kind of smirks them like he has fucking diamond diplomatic immunity. Like, I couldn't figure out what they're like, well, you better do this and you'll get your 10% cut, or you're the one who'll go to jail. I'm like, what? Why? I don't. I mean, if I had a friend in the diamond business, I would know this better. But like everything that had to do with the diamonds, my brain just kind of just flatlined. Like diamonds, percentages, fences, diamonds. I mean, I love any scene where someone looks at a diamond under a microscope, because I don't know what the fuck they're doing with this. They seem cool while they're doing it, but as far as the business of insurance, it's hard to really put some dramatic spin on insurance.
Well, wasn't it like he recovered the diamonds, but they couldn't, or like he knew where they were or something. He knew that she had them. No, he recovered them. Ugh, now I'm getting confused. But it was like,
I'm sorry, man.
Well,
because he couldn't prove that she had them illegally because they've been recut. That was
right.
It, right?
Yes, I think you're right. Yeah.
And that's why she had to sign off that they were the same diamonds.
Yes, and in exchange for signing it off, like she would get like less money than she would have if she had successfully sold them, but now that option was off the table. So
and then the other guys came up anyways and stole the diamonds back.
Yeah,
they were
like I wondered if, like, because he had gotten the necklace back, if somehow they had decided not to go through with the other robbery in Chicago, would he have just been done with the job? Would he have just turned that necklace back into the company that had insured it, and then he'd be done? Or like, I don't know if that's the case. Like, it's this weird thing where like his continued involvement with her is predicated on them committing another robbery when they're already suspicious of him. I think it happens in these weird moments where, like, if they say this guy seems suspicious, he tried to sell me a necklace, because she goes and tells her dad that, and she tells Eddie that, and they are suspicious of him, but then they still go through with the robbery.
Well, they send the toughs to beat him up at the waterfront house.
Oh yeah,
and that's when they come in, they pull him down, they karate chop the back of his neck like 5 times, and then one of them just goes and squeezes his balls while we zoom in on his face, which is an impressive thing. And then we have like a 2-minute scene where she comes there, they leave, and they're out of the movie for a while, and he sits there talking business with her while trying to stand up because his balls hurt. Like a shocking amount of time is spent to him just going, ugh, which he would.
Well, I think is it one of those things, like we were confused about the whole insurance agent thing. Like in movies today, obviously there are things that happen which are sort of shorthand, everybody understands. In the 70s, was like, did people just know what an insurance agent did, and like they were accepting of it? So when she comes in during that scene and she's talking to him and she figures out that he's an insurance investigator, and it's like this big reveal. Yeah. And it's like, did everybody just know what that was and what their powers were at that point in time?
If I was a writer for the Thomas Crown Affair, I might assume everyone's watched the Thomas Crown Affair.
Oh, good point. Yeah, good point. Maybe so.
I think I was just thinking just now, like, I think that maybe there'll be a resurgence of the insurance investigator as a hero, because like I think it could be like a crime character that both the left and the right can agree upon.
Oh yeah, maybe.
Like the left, it won't be glorifying the police, which is obviously a huge problem, as we know.
Yeah.
And for the right, they could be like, yeah, private police protecting property, personal property. What can be better than that?
What can be better than someone saying like, I own this is mine, and you don't deserve any piece of it, especially if it's stolen heritage. They would love that.
Yeah. I'm going to hire my own private force.
2021, the year that the insurance investigator becomes a top character in film and television. We get rid of all the cop shows and we just create a whole slew of insurance investigator programs.
Yep.
God, how much of this movie, like, I want to mention when she's figuring out that he's neither a very clever, lucky amateur, that he's in fact an insurance investigator. He's very excited that she's figuring this out. He has this big open mouth smile, like an inch from her face. But like, how much is the problem of the mystery? Is like the actual authorities are very bad at tailing people through airports and on streets.
Oh,
like they catch guys a few times. They caught, like, there's a whole scene where they, like, quote unquote catch her at the airport where they think she has diamonds on her, and we unfortunately as the audience have to watch her strip and get.
Oh yeah, that scene was pretty rough.
It was pretty rough, and then like the next scene, she's fine.
Yeah.
Like,
They also lose that. They lose Eddie in the airport as well. Like they are not very good at tailing people. Like they think that he's there, but then he has a fake guy that looks like him, that's dressed like him, that they think is the real Eddie, who gets in another cab. And like
Saddam Hussein watched Lady Ice and thought that's a pretty good idea. 2006 would love that joke.
This is when that happens. They go to the airport and like they lose track of Eddie, and then they see him. The other team sees him, so they're like tailing both guys, trying to figure out what's going on. And then also like Donald Sutherland gets involved here, and he's driving around too. And every car, and it makes sense now that you mentioned that the writer also wrote Bullet, because there's this scene where every car that goes over the hill is jumping like the car chase in Bullet. Like their suspensions are all shot.
Yeah. This is a story that I've told on my own podcast before, but I remember reading at some point that the writers of the Rockford Files would put a car chase in every episode because it allowed the editing to work better. Like if they were long or short in the script, they could just make the car chase longer or shorter, and it wouldn't affect anything.
It's like shrinking the credits of The Simpsons.
Exactly. Yeah. And I feel like as much as I enjoy the movie, like there's unless it's something like Bullet, to bring up another of his movies, like there's a very perfunctory quality to these old car chases compared to like what we're used to now in movies. We've seen so many inventive car chases, even though like a lot of them are terrible because they defy gravity or whatever. But you know what I mean. Like I can no longer be excited by like a Lincoln kind of taking a turn slightly faster than it might otherwise.
I mean, when you throw a camper trailer in there full of diamonds, the thing is, I didn't even realize that they were in a camper at first, so even the excitement of that was kind of lost to me. What I had a problem with, and I've talked about this in our podcast a couple of times since the pandemic started, was like I had trouble watching things that are like TV shows that are supposed to be taking place contemporarily, and they're doing things that we can't do. And I'm like, fucker, you guys can't just all just crowd in a train and go somewhere. You guys can't do that. I don't believe it. But I can kind of put myself, when I'm watching older stuff, like, oh, that was the old days. They could do that and not get uncomfortable about it. For some reason, watching these fuckers slide around their cars without seatbelts drove me nuts. There's one scene where I think it's Eddie's in the back seat and he's got his arms kind of spread out and he's sliding back and forth like the back seat of the car is made of ice. And I'm like, you will get so hurt if they hit the brakes. Why aren't you taking any safety precautions?
Let's see where we're all over the place in this, and it's totally fine. There's
the movie's all over the place. It's okay.
Yeah,
it's car chases and diamonds.
Yeah, and there's not flirting. A whole lot. Like,
is this where they have the scuba fight? Because that's all I really want to talk about.
Yeah, sort of. They so Paula goes to the Bahamas, and Donald Sutherland is already there, and she meets with a guy who is there to sort of. She meets with I guess he's sort of. I wasn't clear totally on. His name is Peter. I wasn't totally clear on what he was doing. He insists that he is like a legitimate businessman in the diamond business, but it seemed like he was a criminal too. But it was kind of
they're all probably both. Just a heads up, it's the diamond business.
Yeah, and he had very true. He had a bunch of guys with him who were showing her a bunch of different jewels and diamonds, and she was showing them what she wanted and different sketches of things and whatnot. And this is when they go swimming, and it seems like they kind of have a relationship. Like, it seems like there are alternate moments where she's interested in Donald Sutherland's character, she's interested in this guy, she's interested in Eddie, and I don't know if she's interested in any of them or if she's just sort of playing them against each other and to get them to do what she wants them to do, because the movie's called Lady Ice, which would lead you to think that she's the bad guy, but she's really not, sort of.
She does do the whole speech where she says like, oh, I don't talk. I just listen and smile.
True. Yeah, she does say
and
that.
then you're charmed. I'm like, well, okay, well, she's right. That does work.
Yeah. And they go swimming, her and this guy Peter, and they kind of have a little thing, and they sort of start kissing, and then Donald Sutherland walks up and just starts throwing stuff at them.
What I like is like, by today's standards, like the guy she's making out with is an incredible beefcake. He's big, he's muscular, he's handsome, he's got an accent, great looking guy. And then while Donald Sutherland is walking sex, like here's this guy wearing jorts, no shirt, scraggly, got a mustache, and he basically comes in and asserts dominance on it. I'm like, I feel bad, but it's just like, what is this? This is a weird dynamic. And the other guy's kind of like, oh, who's this guy? And she's like, I'm with him now. And they walk off laughing.
I love their initial conversation too, where he comes in and he's like, look, I'll give you the insurance company will offer you $500,000, but that's as good as our offer is going to be. We know what you're doing with the stones. You're trying to cut them, reset them, all this stuff.
Why does he never hide anything?
I don't know. He just he tells everything. But while he's having this conversation, he's unbuttoning his shirt and just standing there rubbing his stomach. And I was like, that's a real intimidating move, Donald Sutherland.
I forgot to mention before. Well, not forgot to mention before. It's apropos of nothing, honestly. I just remembered that part of the reason why I might be a little fuzzy on some of the finer details of the movie is that I spent a lot of time trying to take a good photograph of my television when Donald Sutherland was on screen, and then creating a little photo collage for my own amusement, where I put his face next to that of a skinny lion.
You are 100% right.
Yeah, that's pretty accurate. Yeah,
he looks like a more sexual scarf or some sort.
Yes.
But yeah, he kind of she sends away Peter and they kind of go for a walk. And this is when Donald Sutherland's wearing his best outfit of the movie, his bucket hat and jean shorts, and he's quoting E.E. Cummings poetry.
Okay, why did he quotes E.E. Cummings, then he makes sure she knows he goes E.E. Cummings, woohoo! And I'm like, you've never talked like this the entire movie. Are you on script? I rewound it like 3 times. Like, did he just go woo woo? This is not a woo woo character.
No, nor a woo woo movie.
It's not. Everyone just stares at each other.
And it's similar to him, unbuttoning his shirt and rubbing his stomach while he's having the conversation. But while he's doing this with her, they're talking and laughing and everything. He's just like strapping on a scuba tank very distractedly. And I was like, I really hope they don't go scuba diving. This is just a random thing that he decided to do during the scene to keep himself busy.
And the cameras are just like, just go with it, man. This is like some of the best production value we have in this whole movie.
But they do go scuba diving. Skinner,
but
this
why?
Is your favorite scene.
Okay. I'm also fuzzy on it. Work and life gets in the way of watching a movie in its entirety in one shot, and also like it's been a few days. But I was like, okay, why are they going scuba diving? Maybe they're scuba diving for diamonds. Did he ever hide diamonds under the water? That would be an odd thing to do. They're going down when they're looking for something. Oh, are they going to make out underwater? And then she pulls off his mask and thing, and he gets water in his face. I'm like, is she trying to kill him? Is she scuba fighting him?
That's what I thought. I thought she was like trying to murder him.
And then he gets up and he's just like, oh, that sucked. And she's like, did that suck? And he's like, yeah, it did. I'm like, what was the whole point of this scene other than to put them in
I'll tell you what the point of the scene is, because when they come up, she says, oh, I thought you liked that close to the edge feeling. She's helping him edge.
Oh dear.
You can do it without having to rent equipment.
This is when there's like a really convoluted moment where like Peter straps a suitcase with the jewels to his wrist, and then he's going to go to the airport to do something, I guess to sell them or take them somewhere. And then a bunch of guys jump him and get the suitcase off of him, and then take the suitcase to Donald Sutherland, who has set up this whole elaborate thing. And then he hops into a seaplane and takes the diamonds back to, like, he must hide them or something, because then when he shows up on the beach with the guys from the company, he doesn't have the diamonds with him. And this is when they say that they need her to sign off that those are the same diamonds that were stolen from them. And then they'll give her immunity, basically.
From the
very
second,
confusing.
From the second where he put on the handcuffs, got in the car, got immediately kidnapped, very easily the handcuffs are removed, like they weren't even an obstacle. And then there's a seaplane, and then there's all the authorities wearing suits at a beach waiting for him to show up in a plane. I absolutely lost the thread of what was going on. Completely and utterly.
Yeah. I mean, this is what I say when I can't quite go with, like, saying that I liked the movie, because I definitely was intrigued by the beginning. Then I was just having fun going along and seeing, like, making guesses at every moment, like, okay, well, what's his game? What is he doing? Why is he doing it? Why is he handling it this way? And then once it turned out he was an insurance investigator, then he, like, occasionally would make a move that I could no longer understand now that I knew who he was. Like, I'm like, why are you playing it that way? And then ultimately, I just kind of got bored. But
that's totally fair.
About 2/3 of the movie.
That's where my thing went.
Yeah, it does kind of fall apart at the end.
I did like. There's a point where he opens a box, and inside the box is another box where the paperwork's at for her to sign, and the entire time the Spooky Peanuts Halloween music is playing.
One of my favorite parts is that we're kind of close to the end of the movie here, because again, not a ton happens, but when he shows up and he kind of explains to her what the whole deal is, like, you'll get this money, you won't be prosecuted if you sign this, and everything will be good. And they go and they, like, go in and jump in a boat outside of her house and ride off. And then they get followed by the guys, by the toughs from earlier in the movie. My favorite thing is that Donald Sutherland just drives this boat right into the shore and basically just fucking wrecks it. That's like, what was the boat budget on this movie?
He's gonna get taken down by a boat insurance investigator.
I like to imagine there's like during the thing, he's like, I think I did it wrong. Can we do it again? Like, you've done it 20 times, Donald. We've done 20 boats. We've got it. Yeah. Quit wrecking our boats.
What I like about his ability to show up anywhere, because that appears to be his main superpower, is like just to walk into someone's backyard at any particular time, is that, like, Miami's a big place. Like, I don't live in a huge city. I live in Minneapolis. I know some people who are one suburb over in Minneapolis. I will never run into them. Never. There's just so many people in space. This guy can just show up somewhere wherever he feels like it. And I always appreciate when a movie does that with no explanation. This guy's just an insurance investigator. How's he getting everywhere? I'm in the Bahamas now. Now I'm here. Now I'm in your backyard. Now I'm in your pool. Now I'm next to you into your tiny pool where you're doing skinny dipping because it's 1970s. And, like, he's just everywhere. He's just an insurance investigator.
Well, I mean, like, I think that probably just because it's Donald Sutherland, but I guess, like, detectives always have, like, this counterculture vibe to them in a certain ways because they aren't cops. But, like, he does also have this, like, when he shows up places, it's just kind of like, I'm playing by my own rules because I just kind of enjoy the game, and I don't really care what happens with the diamonds. I'm just here to smirk with my giant Donald Sutherland teeth and the mustache that covers them.
He's always smirking when he shows up in a room or a backyard. Like,
Yeah.
100%. He only uses, like, one major double entendre the whole movie where he tells her, I have written down, because I don't remember jack shit about anything ever. I'm too old to remember things. But he says along the lines of, I have something extraordinary to show you. And she immediately just goes, why are you talking in double entendres? Like, fucker, this whole movie should have been double entendres.
Yeah, that would have been pretty fun if they had just really like played it up. And I mean, this is kind of the end. Like they dig up the suitcase of the diamonds that she has. She signs the paperwork. He gives her the money, and then suddenly Eddie and all the thugs show up. They take the money, and then this leads to the big boat chase where the Coast Guard shows up with Robert Duvall and they're basically trying to catch them. There's a helicopter there. They're starting to shoot guns at them. And it's just this crazy scene that's happening out on the ocean. And then we have our two leads just standing on the beach laughing.
There are some days.
Yeah, that's what they say. Some days. And then they just laugh uncontrollably until the movie's over. And it's just such a weird, I mean, we already talked about it, but it's just such a weird way to end this story because it is that hallmark of 70s movies that we've sort of lost in modern filmmaking where the story is over, so those movies are done. The credits start rolling, like it's finished. And nowadays it's more like, okay, that story's done. Now we have to see what they're doing 6 months later or next week. You know, like they have to set up that these characters continue to exist outside of the story. But like 70s and 80s, it felt like this story's over. These people might as well be dead. We're moving on. And
as we said before, very fake laughter. It just sort of occurred to me that one of the things that you said, I forget what, like sparked this in my brain that Robert Bresson, the famous film director, one of the facts that is well known about him. I mean, comparatively well known. I mean, people aren't out on the street trading Robert Bresson facts, but he liked to rehearse actors over and over and over again, like 50 takes or whatever, to beat the acting out of them. And the laughter at the end of this scene feels like they were just like, keep rolling, like forcing them to laugh for an hour, and then they used like the take in minute 61.
And this is a movie where like everyone is acting the whole time. Like nothing feels supernatural. But this is like,
there's no ghosts in this, Skinner. There's no supernatural stuff.
There was no twins. I wish there was a ghost. Haunted diamonds, hot diamonds that are haunted, hot diamonds. I'll write that later. It'll be a great movie. But like, I want you to cut in the laughter from this movie into the end of this episode, Josh, so that people know that it was supposed to be funny. It'll cue them in. Once they're already done watching it, they'll know it was a comedy podcast.
I did notice in the credits, I looked through those, and it looks like Neiman Marcus supplied all the diamonds, which I always find it interesting whenever they list things like that, like this company provided this thing or whatever. Like, I wonder if in the world of the movie it was supposed to be actual Neiman Marcus diamonds, because I didn't pay much attention during the robbery scene to see if that was like a Neiman Marcus diamond store or if it was just a random place. So I was intrigued by that, but not enough to do any research or to go back and watch that scene again.
There's a Neiman Marcus at the Mall of America. I walked through it because the parking is very convenient there comparative to everywhere else in the Mall of America. I haven't looked at their diamonds though. I mostly go in there and I go get some cookies from like the cookie place instead.
Well, next time you go through, you can ask them if any of their diamonds appeared in the film Lady Ice.
Going to a fucking mall until 2022, my friend. I'm not touching any of that shit.
Well, I think that about does it. There's not a ton to say about this movie.
Balls were crushed.
Dan, do you have anything that you would like to promote? Obviously, the Flophouse podcast, but please tell us where people can find you online.
Where can people find me online? I guess they can find me on Twitter, which is Dan K. McCoy. There's no way to think of it or read it as anything other than Dank McCoy. I've come to terms with it. Should probably come to terms with it.
I came to terms with it very, very early on, and now really enjoy it, honestly.
Oh, great. Recently in the member bonus content for Maximum Fun subscribers, Judge John Hodgman has ruled that my tweets are funny.
Oh, good.
And that Elliot cannot drag me for it.
This is something else I have also come to terms with and agree with for quite some time.
That's good. So, I mean, like, if you were scared off before by his constant cyberbullying, you shouldn't be anymore. I don't have anything else to plug. No, I'm just talking.
No. But yes, we already said it in the first part, and obviously, if you're listening to us, you've certainly heard the Flophouse. Definitely check that out if you haven't somehow. If you've existed on the internet listening to podcasts for the last decade and you haven't heard the Flophouse, I don't even know how that's even possible. Thank you so much, Dan, for joining us for both of these episodes. It was a blast. I'm glad that we had a halfway decent movie for you to talk about with us.
After 12 years, I think, of doing the Flophouse, yes, this was a halfway decent movie. I can say it with authority.
Well, thank you so much, and we'll be back next week doing it all over again. But until then, I've been Josh.
I've been Skitter. You always make you.
Do I say
you
anything?
always do this awkwardly at that point, Josh, to make their guests feel like assholes.
I'm Dan McCoy. I'm Dan McCoy.
And we predict you'll join us next time. If you like the show, subscribe, rate, and review us over at Apple Podcasts. We're on Twitter and Instagram at predictocast, and you can find our entire back catalog at predictocast.com. Our theme music is by Kyle Sledge. Find more of his work at soundcloud.com/geistmusic. To get monthly bonus content, sign up at patreon.com/predictocast. As always, thanks for listening.
There's no way to end this podcast with guess right. There's literally no way to do it.
Look, I haven't figured it out, and I've been doing it forever. So,
and I'll leave all this in because it's fun.
Oh, sure.